Welcome to the 902 Podcast, the official podcast of the Lancaster County Sheriff's Office in Lincoln, Nebraska. I'm Captain John Vik, and I want to thank you for listening. This podcast will give you an inside look at LSO, with topics and guests to discuss public safety issues impacting Lancaster County. Be sure to follow the 902 Podcast for highlights on news, cases, and the people working for you at LSO. You can also follow us across social media at LSO Nebraska on Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Welcome to the 902 Podcast. We're back with Amanda Gress as our special guest today. Thanks for coming back, Amanda.
Absolutely.
It's been a number of episodes since you've been here, but we're happy to have you back. Sheriff Wagner, Chief Deputy Houchin, as usual. Thanks for being here.
Good morning. Yeah, you betcha.
Yeah, happy Monday on a very hot day.
Well, Ben, you are in charge of our heat plan liaison. So what is, how has that impacted your duties?
Well, I send out an extra email letting everybody know it's hot is what I usually have been doing. So yeah, it's an important task because you can't step outside and know it.
Yes, it is. It is certainly warm in the middle of summer in Nebraska. So, but life goes on. So here we are. Speaking of taking care of ourselves, we wanted to come back, Amanda, and talk about wellness today.
Yep.
And we started talking about this a little bit last time you were on the show. And I know you had a chance to introduce yourself on that one. So if people want to listen to it, you can go back and listen to the previous episode that we have with Amanda. But I thought maybe on this one, would you mind talking just maybe a little bit about how you got involved in kind of the wellness scene? What was it that kind of drew you to that space in your work now?
So I worked a call, death of a child. And after that, I wasn't doing very well. I mentally was not doing very well. I had kids of my own that were pretty young. Mm-hmm. And after that, I just wanted to do more. I wanted to help more because I figured if I was struggling, there are other people that I work with that are probably struggling too. So I joined the Critical Incident Stress Management Team of Nebraska. A long time ago now, probably 2003-ish. Mm-hmm. And I just, 2000, I don't know what year it was. But it was important for me to figure out how to help people, how to help others. And I know that this job isn't easy sometimes, and sometimes we just need help.
Yeah. Well, we were just talking about it before we went on the air about the life expectancy of law enforcement officers in the United States, at least. And this is a stat. The average life expectancy for just a general population in the United States, 78 years old, but for law enforcement, it's only 66. So, that's an attention getter, I think, at the very least. Just when it comes to life expectancy, I think a lot of that's attributed just to on-the-job stress, cumulative stress, kind of secondary trauma type stuff. But also, shift work certainly can lend itself to maybe some unhealthy habits over time, sleep, all the things that go into, law enforcement and first responder jobs in general. But that's why I guess we're getting there. We're certainly not perfect, but we're trying to take more steps to those are real numbers. So what do we do to mitigate that stuff? And what do we do to change the numbers game and get out in front of it? Because we know that's the results. What are we doing to maybe try and at least get that number more in line with the general life expectancy in the United States? The other thing that comes up, we talk about, and we've had it happen at least in circles that we know. I don't know that we've had one real directly at the Lancaster County Sheriff's Office, thank God, but law enforcement suicide is a real thing, and even amongst the retiree population. Yeah,
and between some of the work deaths, and then we are losing more to suicide than we are in the line of duty deaths, and that's not helping that number at 66. And I think that a lot of the scary thing is we don't even have a good grasp of that number of actually how many of the individuals are. Because again, it can be the retirees, and then it can just be the active. And as a profession, we have not been very good at getting that number. Now, we have gotten a lot better at trying to deal with it, but we still have a long ways to go. And the military also is one of those jobs that seems to have a high suicide rate.
And there's not a real good repository for statistics when it comes to mental health and suicides in law enforcement. We're trying to get better. So the numbers are a little bit all over the map, but there was a report from a group called First Help that the average number of suicides per year it was a 7-year period that they studied and was just shy of 184. So in 2022, they had documented 183 suicides amongst all first responder, public safety type positions. And the highest number in 2019 was 234. So, yeah, you're right. I mean, depending on which numbers you look at, it's certainly on par or above line of duty deaths. And we share that, unfortunately, with the military. We share that amongst, other first responder groups. And it goes into the line of we're dealing with things and seeing things that your average citizen in the United States isn't dealing with.
Well, that, and we have the equipment to succeed in committing suicide. And it certainly is an issue that has been ignored way too long in our profession. I know when Sheriff and even I've only been, not only 31 years. I mean, it used to be rub dirt on it. Mm-hmm. Don't think about it. Don't worry about it and keep moving on because it's a weakness. And that is so sad because I think that certainly has not helped. And then as that generation came up through the ranks, it's taken a while to move towards the wellness part of it. And I think we're getting there. We got a long ways to go, but I'm sure happy we're starting.
It's interesting. I was just kind of thinking about this as we all were chatting about wellness in general. And it's not just about mental health wellness we're talking about. I mean, I remember the day when our sirens were mounted up on a visibar right above our heads, and by the time you got the call, you were deaf because the siren's blaring in your ear. If we went to the firearms range, they'd say, "Who wants ears? Ear protection?" And you were kind of a wimp if you said, "Yeah, I need some ear protection." So we went out there, qualifying without ear protection on, and then you walk away and your eardrums are ringing, and you think, "Wow, that was kind of dumb." And then just what Ben said, you work a tragic or traumatic death, and some folks, went home and drank because of those things, and alcoholism is a very real hazard in law enforcement, and partly because we haven't helped our employees deal with the trauma very well.
Yeah, they learn to self-medicate.
Yep, absolutely.
And a lot of it is personal responsibility, but we obviously care about our people and want to make sure that they're healthy, because then that healthy people ultimately puts a healthy product out on the street, and then we're able to hopefully take better care of our community that way too. I guess, Amanda, in the full circle of things.
Yes.
Hopefully.
Yes.
You'd made a joke before we turned on here too, but it's serious. You're going to say it better than I could, but
I said, if I knew I was going to live this long, I'd have taken better care of myself.
Yeah. And I mean, it's funny, but it's true,
Absolutely, yeah.
And, when you get to the point where it's too late for a lot of people, because you didn't get to that point overnight, and it takes work, throughout your life to make sure that you're taking care of yourself mentally, physically, spiritually, all the things. So, Amanda, you have been kind of quasi-designated as our wellness coordinator in-house. I don't know if we've made that title formal, but
not yet.
But it's we're still taking a look at kind of our wellness program at the Lancaster County Sheriff's Office, because wellness encompasses so many things, and so sometimes it's hard to kind of put, where does that stuff all sit? But you went to a conference, I think, with cops last fall. What are kind of some of the new trends that we're talking about now in the wellness space in law enforcement?
Oh, there's all sorts of things. They're trying to figure out different types of therapies for people, whether it's like in-person therapy, their animal therapy, EMDR, which is like the eye movement therapy.
Eye movement desensitization.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's pretty fascinating stuff.
It's crazy,
that they
to
can
think about.
that they can do. I've never done it, but I've watched some videos, and it's pretty wild.
Yeah, and just noticing like the signs, trying to get people aware of the signs of somebody in distress, whether it's pulling back a little bit, maybe their mood changed, and just trying to figure out ways to help our cops, like yoga for first responders. I know they do the yoga at LPD's academy, so our kids will get to do that out there.
Yes.
So that'll be something different that we've never really done. Peer support is huge right now, and we're trying to set up ours. I've been working with LPD for the last couple of years now on trying to get an established peer support team. They've been very gracious and said, like, if they ever need us, if we ever need them to come to us, then they would absolutely do that too. So, yeah, just lots of things going on. It was pretty cool to see when I went out there.
The other thing, that's even, Ben, if we get to a point where people are comfortable enough to say, okay, yeah, I've got something going on. I could use some help with this. The other tough thing is that knowing, okay, well, where do I go now? And is there do I talk to a therapist? Do I talk to a doctor? What do I do for that stuff? And I know, Amanda, that's something also that you've been working on too, because just because you're a therapist, licensed mental health practitioner, doesn't necessarily mean that you've done that kind of work with first responders, because it's just different.
Right. And I've been working with a couple different people trying to figure out a trauma-informed or first responder-informed therapist.
Yep.
There are several in our community. Most are in Omaha, but I went to one just over here in Lincoln, and she does like animal therapy / like her office is outside.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a different way of doing therapy. So it's just trying to figure out the right person for a first responder is really hard. And I did learn through all this that if you go more than 5 times through insurance, they require you to have a diagnosis from the therapist.
Okay.
And so a lot of people that, for law enforcement, we don't want that label of being depressed or doing whatever because of fear of getting your gun taken away. So,
because it impacts your ability to make a living.
Yes.
You bring up a point of the insurance, and we've had some people at our office, I know, that have voiced things like that they've been trying to navigate. So, hey, I finally found this therapist that I'm actually connecting with, but they're out of network, or this service is covered, but these aren't. And so there are still some barriers, unfortunately, even when people do go and seek the treatment stuff and things that we want to make sure that they're staying well and staying healthy, at least mentally, that you get them that far, and then it seems like they might hit some frustration again because there's still something else down the line that hasn't quite been hammered out yet.
Right.
Hey, I'm Captain John Vik with the Lancaster County Sheriff's Office. When it comes to your future, don't settle for good enough. Don't settle for ordinary. We won't either. Start your future today at joinlso.com. Sheriff, has there been much, in terms of on the legislative side of things, because I know you kind of have your pulse on that, has there been a lot of talk on first responder wellness when it comes to things that the legislature is looking at, or some of the Sheriff's Association and Police Officers Association of Nebraska, things like that?
Well, we're talking right now about Cordico.
Yes.
A product through Lexipol, which is a law enforcement training provider. And, that's paid for, I think, through a grant through the legislature. So,
yeah. Was the FOP involved in that, Amanda?
Gosh, I don't know
think
that.
the firefighters.
Okay.
I think it was the firefighters that secured the funding
Okay.
for it, and they're going to pay for first responders statewide
Yeah.
to participate. I know Congressman Flood has been really active and very supportive of law enforcement in all of the realms of hiring and retention and wellness and all those kinds of things. And I think I think there are a number of legislatures that would certainly help us if we knew what to ask for.
Yeah. Well, I had first heard of Cordico when I was out in the FBI National Academy out in Quantico, and I came back and I was so excited to tell Amanda about it, only to find out that Amanda was already working on something. So how did that start as far as like our website, Amanda?
So for the app itself,
Well, let's even back up further,
Okay.
like, because we kind of set up just a landing page internally for our people. And
Yes.
what did that look like when you were working on that?
so we asked a bunch of deputies, like people that they trust in the, for therapists. We did we just tried to put everything onto our webpage that we had access to already.
For just resources in general.
For physical fitness, for different resources, for nutrition, and wellness and therapists and all sorts of stuff. So we were working on that. Captain Trotter and I at the time were working on that together and putting it all into the system. So it was pretty limited at first, but yeah, my goal was to start something like that. And you came back and were like, the Cordico app. And I'm like, oh yeah. I know.
Yeah. So, we were working on that. The funding's obviously tight for everybody. And so, originally when we were looking at it, it wasn't a never, but it was kind of like hey, this is something we need to keep working on.
Yep.
And then, when we found out there was grant funding available statewide, it's kind of a no-brainer. Why wouldn't we take advantage? So you've been working on getting our app developed. So
Yes.
for people that are maybe some of our retirees that are listening at home, even some of our family members, they're going to have access to this, right?
Yes.
So what does this look like?
So basically what they do is we have our own webpage. We scan a QR code. It can be anybody that works here and their spouses, retirees, people who have worked here.
Yep.
And it's a great resource for different therapists, different nutritionists, some videos. I could go on for a long time on everything that they have for us, and it's pretty cool that we get it for free now. And I think once we get this going, we're going to have flyers that people can scan the QR code. We have different things that we can hand out to people. So yeah, it's just been a lot of work working with the Lexipol people, and they've been awesome.
The thing I like about it is it's kind of just a one-stop shop. It's just a clearinghouse, taking the idea that you were already working on, of having all that information at your fingertips, but putting it in an app format that people are used to using. I'm holding my cell phone in my hand right now. Seems like there's an app for everything, and it's about time we have an app for this.
Yes.
So I'm glad to know that. The other thing that is cool, at least I think about it, is that it's anonymous.
Yes.
So I know that's something that comes up from time to time that people are concerned about. Is my workplace is offering me this app now? Are they going to find out, if I'm looking at, information about, mental health or something else that I got going on, but nothing's tracked, and it's an anonymous login that's, I think, kind of shared by the agency, as I understand.
And
so.
when we have that, they will give us updates on hey, this amount of information was utilized. It will never say who it was or anything like that. It gives you numbers, 4 people looked at this specific topic. So
Yeah, the confidentiality of the whole program is very important to Cordico and to us and to employees, and so they select their own password, and we're not able to track that.
Yep.
We don't know what anybody accesses. So
Yeah. And, if somebody is truly in a mental health crisis too, there's a way and a number to contact and have instant.
Yeah, I think it's just a one click.
Yeah, you just click the button and it calls several different, it starts at the top, and if they don't answer, then it just goes on to the next thing.
Yeah, and so it's kind of a cascading levels of support depending on what people need at the time. So even if they're in a immediate crisis, they've got help available to them.
Yep. And eventually when we have our own peer support team, the peer support team will be on there too. And people can look at, oh, these people are on this app. I can click on them. I can email them. I can text them. I can call them. So it's just like everybody can look and say, okay, well, I prefer to talk to Amanda over somebody else.
Sure.
So that's kind of nice too.
Yeah. So we're hoping maybe a little later yet this summer, we'll
I'm
have
hoping
that
pretty soon.
have that rolled out and available to LSO staff, their families, and then to our retirees.
Yeah.
So pretty awesome benefit to be able to provide to people.
Yes.
So
Another thing we should probably talk about a little bit is our physical fitness and some of the things that we allow them to do at this point. And then Sworn can have 30 minutes of on-duty time to work out, and a lot of them go past that on their off-duty portions.
at the end of a shift or something.
Yeah, and investigator Nick Heitman's done a lot of work. You go around and look at some of the training facilities at different locations, and we're very lucky to have what we have. Sometimes you just wish you get more people involved in some of that part of it. Now, not everybody has to lift weights or do those things, but yeah, just going through my career, I've always been pretty active, and I don't know how many times of just physically going out and doing a workout, you come back and you just feel so much better.
Yep.
And you look at things differently at that time.
Well, and we employ people that are expected to go out and do sometimes a very physical, rigorous job. And they say that the job is 90% boredom and 10% terror sometimes, with extreme physical exertion and things like that. So we are really asking people to go out and be tactical athletes to some extent. We don't have to look too many days ago just to see how quickly something can go bad. When you look at the campaign rally by former President Trump, that something that looks like it's a pretty
routine, mundane,
yeah, just an event. It's another rally, and all of a sudden, sadly, at least one person killed out of that, and certainly could have been many more. But law enforcement that are expected to react, and in that case, I mean, there's a bad guy up on a roof. You got to be able to get up on a roof. You got to be able to, cover a long distance of ground. You might have been standing. I don't know how long those guys were there. We don't know any details about it yet, but you could have been on security for 5-6 hours with nothing happening.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, just like that, time to go. So, super, super important that the physical part, because they all kind of play together. I mean, I think, you take care of yourself physically, you're going to be better mentally. Take care of yourself mentally, you're going to be better able to get in the game physically. And so it all kind of plays together. And I know, Amanda, we've talked and we've got work to do yet, but we're looking at ways that we can incorporate, more physical fitness into maybe our in-service training calendar and things like that. Yeah. Because a lot of people, I don't know about other places in the country, but it's been pretty similar. A lot of people learn kind of their physical fitness routines, physical education stuff when they're playing sports in junior high school, maybe college if you're successful. But you're training usually for a specific sport, whether that's volleyball or basketball or football, whatever. So when you go back to do that as a, 22, 25, 30-year-old, you're probably training the way that you knew how to train to be a basketball player, to be a volleyball player, a football player. But we've got to be able to provide our people with some skills and resources and training on, hey, this is the job we need you to do now. I don't need you to throw a football for 50 yards. I don't need you to be able to serve a volleyball, but I might have to have you, carry a human being for a distance over a field. I might have to have you climb up on a roof. I might have to have you jump over a fence. Just the various tasks that we're asking people to do after being, for the most part, maybe sedentary for, a few hours of your shift, and then all of a sudden being able to spring into action is a much different physical readiness and physical training regimen than you might have needed when you were playing organized sports, if that's all the exposure that you have. So more room to go. We've added in some new DT stuff with some of our Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu stuff, and Gracie survival tactics, something that Nick Heitman and our DT folks have been rolling out. So it's exciting to have that. But again, also something that folks can do to stay physically fit, reduce some stress a little bit. We just installed a new mat room in one of our facilities at one of our ranges. So just looking at ways that we can get exposure and provide opportunities, Sheriff.
Explain to the listeners what a mat room is.
Yeah, so just a mat room. It's not full of guys named Matt.
No.
But no, a mat room where we actually have the floor covered with DT or defensive tactic mats.
And the walls.
And the walls
and
too,
walls,
so that we've got a safe place, at least relatively safe, for people to practice some of these techniques and maneuvers, that when they have to use them on the street, they've already built some muscle memory and done that stuff in a safer training environment.
Hopefully we're not going to break bones and stuff in our mat room because they've got the padding.
That's the idea.
Okay, yes.
That's the idea.
And that's always been the double-edged sword. You got to train, but sometimes when you train, just like all athletes, you get hurt.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just a fine line, because we certainly don't want to be hurting our people, but we also want them to have, like you said, the muscle memory to do those. Because, if you imagine doing sports or shooting baskets, how many times you have to shoot a basket over and over to get that muscle memory. And there's a lot of different things we are asked to do. Fire a gun, doing all those different things, the wrestling and handcuffing and all that part.
Sheriff, you were kind of a leader in this, I think, probably from some things that you picked up on. But Emotional Support for Law Enforcement was a book that came out. Gosh, I can't even remember the print date on that book.
Dr. Kevin Gilmartin, yeah. And interestingly enough, Dr. Gilmartin was a lieutenant with the Pima County Sheriff's Office in Tucson, Arizona. And took a year sabbatical and got his PhD in psychology in Norfolk, at the Regional Center in Norfolk.
In Norfolk, Nebraska?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I've heard him speak a number of times, and so we brought him back here for the Emotional Survival for Law Enforcement. The name of his book, and I tell you, I've read it. My wife has read it.
Well, you've handed copies of it out to people here because
it's so true. I mean,
so it's those kinds of that research and those types of books that have been around now for some time, and we're just still getting to the point of being able to put that in, Amanda, actual practical steps that we can not only tell our deputies to do, but now hopefully maybe make it easier and provide ways for them to do that, either on or off duty. But we really just appreciate the work that you're continuing to do to try to put that into practice and make it a reality for people, because just super important to take care of our folks.
The one thing I appreciate too, because coming from a different realm, like when you're investigating in a criminal division, you get going on these cases and things, and I would sometimes forget, the trauma that it is, and it was so nice to have people like Amanda come in and say, hey, we may need to have a session, and it just kind of pops on you. It's like, oh yeah. You get tunnel vision
on just the tasks at hand,
and it's really good to have somebody coming in and say, hey, we just need to make sure our people are okay. And I really appreciate you and others that have done that, and I think it helped.
Yeah, for sure. Well, closing thoughts, anything else on this one for today?
No.
I'm just, the big thing I think I want everybody to come out from this is we care for our people, because they're our number one asset that we have, and we care for their families. And the ones that have done it for a long time and now have retired, we just want to make sure we're taking care of our people. And I appreciate all the work you've done, Amanda, on this, because you kind of stood up and got the ball rolling, and it's rolling well now.
Yeah. All right. Well, appreciate the time, Amanda. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, I'm excited.
That is all the time we have for today's episode of the 902 podcast. We appreciate you tuning in. Be sure to follow us on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you enjoy listening to podcasts. You can also reach out to us on social media at LSO Nebraska on Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, and YouTube. To learn more about career opportunities at the Lancaster County Sheriff's Office, be sure to visit us at joinlso.com. You can also reach out to us via email at lso@lancaster.ne.gov. We hope to catch you on a future episode of the 902 podcast. Thanks for listening.